Oh, wow. So,
And so the paranormal aspect of this, and this is cool. So um, Trudy and myself, we were invited to participate in a paranormal TV show
okay.
that was being filmed at this restaurant slash storage cellar at the college. And what had been going on is that the the uh, the staff who run the student services,
Okay.
which incorporates this restaurant,
Right.
they had begun experiencing paranormal aspects inside the restaurant.
Wow.
They were hearing noises, sounds. Um, could have been residual, could have been intelligence. They were seeing shadow figures in this restaurant. So there was a, um, a television production that
Hmm.
got hold of this and filmed an episode of their TV show called Ghost Stories
Oh, I remember
at the
that.
location. And Trudy and I were invited as the scientific paranormal investigators to bring our equipment in and give our opinions of what these staff members were experiencing. And so we got in there, and yeah, sure enough, we're on camera. We're demonstrating our equipment to the college staff,
Right.
and sure enough, the REM pod starts screaming. And it's
But
not any of the TV cameras, because we were asked that. Is it any of the equipment? We went, no, no way, not a chance.
mhm.
Because the REM pod, you need to be literally right on top
On
of it
top of it, yes.
to be able to trigger that device. And so it started screaming. So Trudy and I started asking questions. We didn't really get anywhere with that. And there was also a psychic on
Right.
the show who came in to complement what we were doing. And she's the one who picked up what was going on.
Wow.
That the shadow figure that the staff were seeing, it sounds cliche, but it was a woman in white. Just like we always joke, there's always a woman in white.
Colored ghosts.
But they were seeing this shadow figure, woman in a white dress. And this psychic, she picked up and determined that this woman, her name was Mabel,
Okay.
and she was dressed all in white because she was a nurse
Oh,
from the hospital
okay.
at from whatever time period.
Hmm.
She was one of the hospital nurses,
Oh,
and so that was fun. And
did you
with
get
our
as to why she would be in the food storage facility? No.
no, no, all we ever determined was just the very basics. That her name was Mabel. She was a nurse.
Okay.
Why she would be in the food storage cellar, we have no idea.
Right.
So what happened is the college staff, they were intrigued by our equipment.
Right.
So after the filming had completed and the film crew was packing up, they were getting ready to leave. These two staff members, they asked Trudy and myself if we wanted to stick around and do an actual little investigation with them,
Nice.
privately after everybody left. And so,
Great.
sure, we'll give it a shot. So the film crew left, and the staff members they shut off all the lights and locked the doors, and we spent a couple of hours doing an investigation in this cellar. And unfortunately, nothing happened. So it was a an opportunity that we certainly may
a lot of
use.
extra energy, right?
Yes, there is.
Especially
That's
with
right. That's
crew
right.
and equipment and things like lights and all of these things that I think sometimes, it's energy attracting energy. And so of course they're able to be a little more active. But then once that dissipates, sometimes you lose that activity because it's not ramped up through the extra electrical current or just the energy of people being in the room. So like I know you and Trudy are pretty laid back, like they're energy wise you guys are pretty laid back. And so I think too, like I know with myself I'm pretty laid back as well. So I'm not there to agitate or to, I'm hoping that they're going to connect to me through just our energy being in the space. But it doesn't always
Yeah,
happen that way, right? But that's
that's right.
really cool. Like what a neat opportunity to be able to do that, like in part of the old facility. So that would have been like
Yeah.
way back here somewhere because here's, this is the little mountain, this is the Mountain Brow Road here. And then now you have what is it? Which road is it there between? I forget what it's called.
Fennel Avenue
What is
is
it?
where is the Fennel Avenue is that
Yeah,
crossroad
that's right. Upper Fennel.
between Mohawk College,
Yeah.
the current hospital, and of course on that one street corner you've got the Ockmar
Ockmar.
estate
Yeah,
as well.
Ockmar is
Yeah.
right across the road over here. Right. So I think that we're like looking at this like where Century House is now, like it's in this, and you've got all this open area now too, right?
Yeah,
Here.
where Mohawk College is, it would be at the very back of the
Yeah,
picture.
it would. It'd be like out of this picture actually at that point, right? And then Ockmar would have been back over here in this giant wooded area to
Hmm.
the left, right? Because Ockmar had like a massive piece of property. I mean, they came all the way from what's essentially Fennel to the Mountain Brow
Yeah.
at that point too, right? So they had this massive.
Now that old hospital property, we know Ockmar, the Ockmar estate was massive.
Yes.
Where that old hospital is,
Mhm.
was that actually Ockmar property at the beginning, or
No,
did it not go over that far?
I don't know that I don't know. I tried to look at that, but without being able to go into a land registry and check and see the original or into the archives to see the original documents, I don't know if Ockmar was over this far because let's see, Ockmar was built in the 1850s. This initial building was this initial hospital was begun in 1868. So there's a very close time period there. So I don't know that this would have been Ockmar's. I think Ockmar owned the property on the other side, like from here over to what is Upper James today, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah.
all the
Yeah.
way over to that part, which is, as the Mountain Brow curves around here and then it kind of comes out again and goes around. So I think that they would have had that whole piece because like that the gatehouse there is right on Mountain Brow
Yeah.
at that other point where it kind of comes it sort of curves around and then it kind of juts out again and then they cut the Jolly cut they cut in the Upper James there, but that used to be where the I like to call it the funicular the rail cars used to come up.
Oh, the incline.
The incline railroad,
Yeah.
yeah, was up there too, right? So it was on the other side of Ockmar. So I think that probably by the time this gigantic structure, Ockmar had sold off a good chunk of property already at this point, right? I don't even think that they owned most of their land anymore in, where Ockmar was because the original owners were long gone at that point. So I think at that point it was, gosh, I'm trying to think now at the beginning of the 1900s, what Ockmar was. I think it might have still been a private home at that point, but
It was a private home up until,
like to the
because
20s, right?
it was owned by the Buchanans
Yes.
originally.
Yeah.
When it was sold in the Buchanan estate,
Hmm.
It was purchased by the Young family.
That's right. And they had it for quite a
And
while.
then after the Youngs, I believe that's when the wartime
Yeah, hospital.
hospital came into effect.
Yeah, somewhere
And then, of course, as we know, as history moved on,
between.
it was taken over by the nuns.
That's right.
And yeah,
Yeah. So I think it was probably a private home up until now. I'm trying to remember, was the military hospital, did it become that in the First World War or the Second World War?
it was Second World War.
Second World War, yeah. So I
Yeah.
think it was still a private residence up until probably, I know it sat empty for a few years too in between,
Mhm.
right? So I believe
Yeah.
that probably up until the 1920s, and then it became, then after that it became used for the military hospital. But this certainly by this point, I mean, this was still going until the 2000s, right? And then it had all these, like we can see here. I'm going to guess this is by the cars. That looks like the 1960s.
Could be. Yeah.
Yeah,
Although I don't know. Did that big old Barton building still exist in the 1960s?
I think it did. Clearly, I mean, these cars are not, they look like they're either very late 50s or early 60s. All right, by the cars. I mean, we can see them here based on the cars. I'm going to say this is probably like maybe early 1960s or late
Well,
50s.
that's easy enough to look up as to
Yes,
when the
it is.
Barton building was demolished. So
Yeah, yeah, that's it. But just an interesting, facility unto itself. And I was trying to look up any, specific ghost stories around it. I didn't see a lot of particulars, but certainly people have had a lot of experiences.
yeah. Well,
Yeah.
you know what? It's interesting to note
And
that okay, here we are. We've got this big hospital there.
mhm.
Well, further to the west,
Yes.
um, just along the escarpment there was another hospital,
Oh, I know that one
and
very
this
well.
one was a tuberculosis hospital.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Again, which today is long gone, but
Yeah. And I did some filming up there for a horror film. I was actually part of a horror film, the crew or cast of that film, and kind of the crew, cast and crew. I was crew on that one. I believe I was doing wardrobe, and we were filming at that location. And wowzers, that night, it was after midnight when we were filming, and we had permission. And there was one police car with us that night too, up there just to make sure, because that's the end of the bus loop, right? Remember that was like the end of the old bus loop.
mhm.
I can't believe that like people would get off the bus there and just walk through that facility at night. And I mean, it wasn't a very large facility, so but it certainly had some vibes going on there.
Well, that's another one that would certainly have some residual energy that
Mhm.
when
So
you're talking tuberculosis and
oh
all
yeah,
that.
it
Yeah.
says the Barton building was demolished in 1976. So I guess it wasn't even there when you were there. That was the Century Manor row, I guess, was still there, right?
1976, was it that late,
That's what
really?
it says. Yeah, it says
Wow, because
1976.
okay,
Mm-hmm.
like I was born in the mid 60s,
Mm-hmm.
and I'm going to be honest and say I have no memory of that big building ever being there
Wow.
other than photographs. It's
Okay.
wow.
Yeah, but apparently it was there until 1976. So I'm going to put up another photograph and behind me. So let's do that. A second. I love that I'm able to do this. It's just so convenient to be able to swap out these photos like this, and especially for people to see. Okay,